Hi folks, welcome again to the 8 Regents of Westeros tournament, quite possibly for the last time, because this is the little celebration of the Targaryen victory. I guess we could call it the after party. As you can see here, Targaryen finishing in first place quite comfortably in the end. They only have one draw. This is the win and loss here. Displayed on the jousting billion means they had a draw against Tyrell and they beat the other 6 teams, which was very impressive. And with me today are a few members from the Targaryen team, 6 of them in fact. And let me start off by introducing the Regent, my teammate last year from the Baratheon team, Peter, and I guess now he is the only player to have won the 8 Regents tournament twice. So how does that feel, Peter? Welcome to the stream.
Thanks, Miha. Yeah, I didn't even really think about it until I think Marek was commenting on it last week. But yeah, I was on the Baratheon team last year, and I was made Regent of Targaryen this year, which was surprising to me because I am not really known for my Targaryen experience. I mostly played Baratheon in the past. But fortunately enough, this year for the World Cup for Team USA, I was put on House Targaryen because we had another member who preferred to play Baratheon. So that was, kind of good practice and good exposure to the house going into this. Yeah, so it was definitely a huge deal for us to win so decisively, but I really couldn't have done it without the other, my other teammates here. And, I'd like to recognize the ones we have on the stream with us right now. We have Andy Boyd, who's also my fellow American and my meta mate here. So he plays quite a bit of Burn and also plays a lot of Baratheon. So that was kind of 2 things we're going in there. Andy, you can say hi if you want.
Hello. Not sure if you want more than that.
No, you can. We'll just get highs, and then we'll, once we get into commentary, I'm sure you guys can chime in a little bit more. Jim Hansen, also another American, who's on my World Cup team, and he is the most recent world champion. So he came in with a lot of different experience, especially with Targaryen Crossing. He played a couple years ago.
Hello. Yes, I enjoyed that Targaryen Crossing deck quite a lot. I did the same year as Reinhardt at Worlds.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because we wanted to trade for more crossing, and teams wisely did not trade them to us. I think they saw Reinhardt on our team, and they naturally didn't want to give it to us. But we had 2 people who could play that deck very well. Next, we have Johannes, who is an unexpected member of Team Targaryen as well. He's not really known for his love of the dragons. He's our friend in the Reach, actually, but he brought invaluable deck building experience for us. Johannes, feel free to say hi if you want.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, it was a fun experience to play for Tark.
Super. Next, we have the former regent of Team Targaryen, Benjamin, better known as Palpa, who is well known for his Targ loyalty and brought, great experience in all of the games that he played in.
Well, thank you. Hi.
And the last member on the team here we have is Jeff Holder, another American metamate of mine, although he lives in Europe now, better known as TheMeeplesChampion. And he is known for playing attrition decks and for grinding out matches to the bitter end.
Hello, my contribution was I was on the team.
It was a valuable contribution. So those are who we have on with us right now. And, if you don't object, I guess we can get started by moving into, why I drafted these folks and what the whole idea was going into it.
Yes, sure. I will just say, as part of the organizing team, of course, that you were a name that came up very quickly when we were selecting regents as a possible Baratheon regent, but then it seemed a little bit off when we compared you with everyone else, because you had so much more experience, and especially in that particular faction, and it seemed kind of unfair. So the idea was to give you a different faction to make it a little bit more even, but even that in the end didn't quite work, because Targaryen just ran away with the tournament.
I think it just, I got very fortunate that I had the experience coming in, at least with the one Targaryen deck I played, because it would have been much harder going into this having no Targaryen experience, for sure.
Yeah, so tell us about how the team was assembled then.
Totally. So when I went into this draft, I really wanted to prioritize people who were versatile players and versatile deck builders. And above all, I wanted to draft people I knew that were friendly and conducive to a good team environment. I think that was something that we also had in Baratheon last year when Ivailo was regent. He did a great job of fostering a really great team. And, that definitely, I think, came across when our wrap-up call was, 4 hours last year. We all were, we're all excited to play, no matter what. And we were all excited to play, all the quote unquote bad agendas that were offered to us during the tournament. So with that in mind, Jim Hansen to me just came across as a natural first pick because what came down to it is not only was he the most recent world champion, he was on the World Cup team with me, and he was really just an invaluable resource when it came to deck building for all of us on the team. And he was incredibly friendly and encouraging, and I loved to be on a team with Jim because I always feel like I learned something from him whenever I talk to him. And then, of course, it doesn't hurt that he's an amazing pilot. And that showed with his record at the end of the tournament where he was undefeated. I think it was him and Super Duck from Greyjoy were the only players left without a loss.
There was Argento as well, but he didn't play all 7 rounds. He played 6.
Yeah.
Maybe there was someone else, not sure.
That's still an illustrious group.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I was very fortunate to pick Jim first because I actually rolled. I rolled a natural 100 for the drafting. I think we had a D100 to decide the initial draft order, and I picked him first. And I think that probably disrupted some plans of other regents. I knew that Tyrell was also interested in him, and I'm guessing Lanny was obviously interested in him as well. So I was very fortunate to get him. Afterwards, second round, my plan, and the funny thing is, when I was formulating this draft, I actually spoke to Palpa about it because I pushed him a little bit lower in the draft since I knew that he was a loyalist, and I thought that other factions wouldn't bite on him, super early. So I thought it'd be safer to take him, and even other more well-known loyalists like Reinhard lower down. So I took the risk and put Reinhard off to round 2. And he's obviously worthy of, a top 16 pick. That's notwithstanding. I think a lot of people expected me to take him round 1. But Reinhard, obviously, he doesn't really need a lot of introduction. He's the world champion back in 2017 with the infamous Devil Heads on Spikes crossing deck. And, what Reinhard brought was just a lot of experience in Targ, and he came in and he got a lot of high leverage wins for us with decks that you wouldn't necessarily expect him to play. We're going to show you one of his later in the call. He got 2 wins out of Brotherhood, which is a deck that we didn't have a lot of expectations for coming into this tournament. So he was a very good pick there.
Yeah, always slightly risky leaving people like that for round 2, but then since he's such a loyalist, I think I expected you to get away with it, honestly. I don't think the other factions would have drafted him in round 1, so that was probably a good strategy. I think Lannister did something similar with Martin. They took another player first, and then they kind of gambled that Martin would be there, and yeah, that's a sensible strategy. But it could backfire, but it didn't on this occasion.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and then it's always a risk for someone trying to poach a loyalist like that too in round 1. Since, they're so well known for a specific faction, you don't know the experience that they may have for this other one. Like, they're going to be a good pilot, but when you just know the cards of a faction in and out, it's a completely, different dynamic. So after Reinhard, for my third pick, I actually took Andy Boyd. Now, Andy and Jeff have probably been my longest Thrones friends here, and I know that they're both very good pilots, much better than they listed on their survey. I believe Andy said that he was garbage on his survey, but his win rate proves otherwise. So Andy was on the team regionals with me last year, and I think he only lost 1 match, but he was playing a Targ Free Companies deck that was burn focused, and it was brutal. So I knew I wanted Andy on the team. He's a great team player, and I think he'd do very well out of Targ, which he did. So. Well, actually, now we can move on to the next draft, if no one has any questions. And this is a surprising one. This was Johannes, and I only chose Johannes actually at the advice of Jim after I had drafted him. My fourth spot was originally slotted for, I guess, Gab, who was drafted by Team Stark, because I thought he'd be a versatile player. But before we even got to that round, Jim had messaged me and gave Johannes a great recommendation, basically praising his deck building skills and, just his personal skills, just that he was an all-around nice guy and would be good to have on a team. And that really turned out to be kind of the best advice I got the whole tournament. Johannes was truly the MVP, because no one expected, this Tyrell loyalist to come out and take names for the Dragons. And he did. And on top of that, he was the most active member of our server and just helped deck building for all of our players, and it really was fantastic. So that was a great, kind of pleasure getting to know Johannes this tournament.
Yeah, and I think he won more games with Targaryen than he did with Tyrell last year. So there's that.
What do you have to say to that, Johannes?
Yes, thank you for all of the praise, and of course, it's been good 2 months for me in the Thrones, almost undefeated with Targaryen, and then also becoming the Estonian national champion. I think also this format kind of helps the way I play, because I usually don't play the top tier decks, but I want to build a lot of different decks, so the format is kind of very good for me.
Yeah, overall.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why I recommended Johannes, because he and I used to build a lot together, back pre-COVID, and I think we have very similar styles in that we like to play a lot of off-the-wall agendas and suboptimal cards, and I knew that he and I would have a good time building together, and that it would be his deck building tendencies would be perfect for a format like this. And then I know he's branded as a Tyrell loyalist, but I thought it would be, I was pretty sure he'd be up to the challenge of tackling a new faction and getting his deck building juices flowing. So I'm glad it worked out.
I remember in the initial stream, he was one of the more active members kind of in the Twitch comments. And when I was watching it again, I saw that he was a little bit surprised by the pick. But once he jumped in the server, he immediately, didn't want to leave. He said, "I understand that I may be a trade piece, but please don't trade me. I like this team, and don't worry, Johannes, you were never on the table."
Yeah, we can talk about the trades a little bit later, but yeah, we definitely wanted Johannes in Tyrell, and yeah, couldn't be done, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's a gem. Well, after Johannes, my fifth pick was Alex Minotti, who was on Team Targaryen last year. And Alex, better known as Axo on Discord, and I think Caxo NE on the Iron Throne, he's just a very, very skilled Targaryen loyalist. And I think he has some Tyrell games in there too. But he came at the recommendation at Palpa, and that was another great recommendation from one of the kind of other Targ teammates I initially planned on drafting. And he was a great contributor to deck building. He created a couple different lists that multiple members of our team used, and that's something we'll talk about a little bit more. Most of our team members ran multiple agendas. We didn't have one person, for the most part, monopolize any agenda, which I think helped in our matchups because it made us a little bit more unpredictable. But Axo really helped build a couple decks, specifically VS and The Long Voyage, which were really helpful for us in some of these matchups.
Yeah, I have to say, I didn't know him before, and I was really impressed by the decks he built from different agendas, and also the way he piloted them. They were some decks he piloted so well. Well, I didn't know him before, but I was very impressed.
He's fearless. That's really how it came down to some of these piloting. My best Axo memory is probably he had a matchup against Dennis Luke where he was playing Targ VS versus Dennis's Stark Fealty, and that match was down to the wire, and he just played that perfectly. Well, after Alex, I've alluded to him earlier, but it is the man, the myth, the legend, the former regent himself, Benjamin Palpa. I drafted him 7th, which was, I think, lower than other people expected, but it was a play that was similar to what I did for Reinhardt. I knew that I could get more value by taking him a little bit lower, and I did clear this with him because I have a lot of respect for Benjamin, and I didn't want him to feel a little slighted by me taking him lower, but he was an incredibly, kind of high-valued 7 pick. So Benjamin, as we know, is a Targaryen loyalist. He's very active on the Discord, and he was really, really key in helping us with a lot of matchups. He had a lot of pre-built decks, and for many of us who came in with no or little Targaryen experience, those were decks that we could start off as templates, or we could, basically start, just playing right off the bat.
Right. Thank you. And somehow I didn't realize it during the tournament, but I played only 3 decks, so I repeated a lot. I don't know how this happened.
Well, we got a lot of value out of them.
Maybe Peter forced me. No, he didn't. But I don't know. Somehow I only played, I think, Alov, Mamas, and Sop. Right.
Yes, yeah, blood.
So that's
yeah.
it. I don't know why, but it happened.
I was gonna say, did you play 2 out of the 3 Sea of Bloods, or was it just 1? I know Kahan took at least 1 of the Sea of Bloods.
I played 2, right?
Yes.
I think I played twice. Yes.
Yes, it never triggered the agenda. That's the key component.
And also playing 1 event in 2 games, was it?
I think it was 1 in each of the games, but I don't know. It was a bit weird, yeah. Anyway, I won, so it's okay, I guess.
That's right. Yeah, I think the only match that we really got to see Palpa dig into burn events was, he was playing burn decks, but he really went off in the final match against Lannister. He was playing Targaryen Mummers, and he burnt a unprotected Tyrion, the big Shadows one, to Cinders, and that really turned the game for us. So, it's always good to see Palpa out there playing burn. Now, after Palpa, for my, I believe this was 8th pick, I took Jeff, the TheMeeplesChampion. So Jeff is, a longtime friend of mine, and he's always a great team player, and he has really kind of interesting ideas for deck building. I know that he would go out and we could assign him kind of more unorthodox decks, and he could run with them. So for me, that was a no-brainer. I thought he'd be a great kind of member of the team, and I was very happy to have him aboard.
Very kind words, thank you. I had a lot of fun playing with some of these, as you said, rather unorthodox decks. Do wish I could have done a little better with my results, but all in all, the goal was to have fun, and I think we accomplished that.
That we did, at least in my opinion.
I think also Jeff hit the couple of the most hard countered decks against Targaryen and Burn. Like something like you can't do anything in those matchups, and also playing.
Yeah, there were some of those. There were some that I just had to take a shower after to wash the stink of that game off of me.
Yeah, so I don't know if that can be described as a fun, but good to hear that you had a good overall experience.
It is. Yeah, there's a story during that Tyrell matchup, Miha, where we kind of decided to send Jeff into the killing fields with DWDW, even though it seemed to be a little suboptimal for us, since we thought that we suspected that I think Chiron was going to play a stronger deck, and we wanted to save an agenda to try it for one of our other, matchups we thought we would more likely win. Now, that backfired a little bit on us. We ended up tying. I thought we were going to win Axo's match that day, but I think Jamie played that match, perfectly against him. But so Jeff has been, kind of our utility man, and we've been very thankful to have him.
Yeah, Darkwing Sacrificial Lamb, I think, is now the
agenda that I'll roll. Oh well. Well, finally, my last draft pick after Jeff was Alex Serban. So Alex is also another friend of mine. He actually he's in my local meta. He lives about 25 minutes from me here in the United States. So I know he played last year, and I think last year he had a couple matches, but didn't play a lot during the tournament, so I think that drove his draft value down. But I knew that I could, go find him if he got out of communication. So I took Alex because I knew that he loved the free companies agenda, and that was something that I really wanted to trade for because to me it seemed obviously strong in Targaryen. So he was our captain general of the Golden Company. He ran mercenaries almost every game, and he performed very well doing that this tournament. So those were my draft picks. Afterwards, I was randomly assigned the players Kahan. He's Kahan Boom. He remained on the team after the silly season, and Kahan was a newer player, but he gained a little bit of notoriety by playing on the Team India World Cup team. So I was actually kind of excited to have him because I knew that, everyone on that World Cup team worked really hard. So I was excited to have him play and get in reps. And Kahan, he basically came in with not a lot of Targaryen experience, but he learned and grew throughout the whole tournament. And at the very end, he got a win over Lannister, and that was like amazing to see. And that actually clinched the win for us over Lannister. We were just tied previously. So that was a real cool story to watch him kind of grow as a player throughout this tournament.
And his schedule was brutal throughout.
Oh,
He took all the top hitters.
I think you look at it, he was our lightning rod. What did he oh my goodness, what was it? First round we were against Martell. I think he got David against Martell.
No, he played Marcel Arias against Martell, and then Alex
yes.
against Greyjoy. So that's as tough as it gets at the start.
It was pretty tough, and I think he came back. He's like, "What could I have done?" And we're like, "Kahan, you couldn't have done any better than us. Don't you worry." So we got very lucky in some of these matchups early that, unfortunately he was a sacrificial lamb there too. So we were able to get more value out of our more experienced players in some of these other early matchups. All right. Well, at this point, let me at least discuss the players we acquired via trade. So Calm, I'd really like to highlight him. So Calm, we actually received a trade to Stark. We gave Todd Jensen over to Stark, and it's funny, Todd performed very well, but Calm performed very well for us. So he was actually a Targaryen loyalist. When I was looking at his stats, that initially made him an attractive trade target to me. And Calm actually has a notoriety of having probably, I would say, the most, kind of out of the box, insightful adds to almost all of our decks. He had a lot of really good ideas that we ended up plugging into a lot of our decks, and they, concretely helped in a lot of our matchups. And on top of that, he won most of his matches, so it was a good trade, in my opinion. He was a wonderful guy to work with. And then lastly was Santi, who was a World Cup, Team India World Cup teammate of Kahan's, and we traded for him from Team Tyrell. We sent Rupert over to you, where he proceeded to, of course, have a reign of terror over everybody and tear it up. I think he either finished first or second in Team Tyrell or somewhere up there.
Yeah, just behind Radic.
Yeah, Rupert did really well. Santi, we didn't have a lot of communication with Santi, but I think that came down to he works kind of a standard day job here in the United States, and he did not have a lot of availability outside of U.S. hours, so it made it very difficult to schedule matches with him. So I wish we got to kind of hear a little bit more from Santi, but from my interactions with him, he still seemed like a good guy, so we weren't unhappy with him. So with that, those were the players in the lineup. And we can move on to the agendas and talking about the silly season a little bit, if that's fine with you, Miha.
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
Yeah, so when it came down to the silly season, at first I didn't really want to trade a lot of people. I wanted to make one trade because we decided from talking to Palpa and Reinhard and Alex that we really needed to get rid of Kings of Winter. And obviously Banner Dragon. We didn't want to sit on a Banner Dragon. So we had our first trade with Stark, which seemed pretty natural. We would give them Winter. They would take it eagerly. And we could get some better agendas like, free companies, Cohort. I don't know if they gave us Cohort. I think they gave us Valyrian Steel. But, some agendas to be worthwhile to us. But all of the mathematics for that kind of changed in my mind when all of a sudden, Greyjoy had a trading bonanza. And I don't know if you all had the same thing happen to you guys in Tyrell, but it came down to the fact that, we can't just sit here now while Greyjoy sits on, I don't know how many fealties they found. It was insane.
Yeah, I kind of expected the silly season to start off slowly, so teams would get together, introduce themselves, maybe talk a little bit of what they wanted to trade, but then suddenly it was at something like day one or day two at the latest. Greyjoy and Knights of Cholera did a massive trade, and it seemed like whoever was waiting too long, the agendas would be gone by then, so we needed to move pretty quickly.
There was definitely some northern schemes at Craster's Keep between Connor and Polly.
I know we were at a disadvantage there. It definitely was like I enjoyed the silly season. It was stressful, but I enjoyed the whole kind of trade deadline. I'm a big baseball fan here in the United States, so it felt very trade deadline baseball to me, where you're making multiple deals. I was a little bit at a disadvantage in my mind because I was, I think, the only regent operating on basically North American time. So I would wake up in the morning, I would see all these deals going through at like 4 a.m., my time. And thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, great. So now I need to start over. But we got some through. So I kind of alluded to the earlier trade with Stark. That happened actually after the Greyjoy trade. But we really wanted to trade for free companies basically above anything else. It just, to me, that stood out as a very strong agenda. And I really wanted to trade for Conclave, which, didn't perform as well for us, but I had a Conclave deck I really liked. And Jeff liked it, so I knew that we had pilots. But, that's sometimes how the cookie crumbles. So for Stark, we ended up trading Todd for Com, and I believe the agendas that were involved were we gave, I think we gave them a fealty, we gave Winter, we gave Hollow Hill. Can't really remember what else we gave them, but we ended up receiving free companies, Valyrian Steel, and Conclave out of that deal. Oh, we traded a Banner Dragon for a Banner Wolf. Yes, that's what happened. We got rid of Banner. So at that point, I was kind of happy with that trade. I don't know if anyone else felt differently. I think that was pretty good for us. It was funny to watch in the main chat where when Miho was posting his who won the trade, and everyone overwhelmingly chose Team Stark, but I think Miho, as the exception, said that Team Targ won that trade, and I'm glad that we got that vote of confidence at least.
Yeah, it's difficult to remember now. It seems pretty even when I look at it. But yeah, you were getting a loyalist, that was the scary thing, and Todd is a very good player, but he wasn't a Stark player like Com was for you, so that was my main reasoning, I think, at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think people also look at the Knights of the Hollow Hill and thought about this is a great Targaryen agenda, but with the restrictions there is now, I don't think it's that great of the agenda for Targaryen anymore, even though I played it and won with it. So
yeah, and I think you didn't run the traditional Targaryen Hollow Hill, which was Burn.
Yeah, I was trying to build that, but then I realized too many cards are restricted for it. To actually mate, and also Gothor's redesign and stuff like that makes it far worse than it used to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Not having I feel like it came down to we ended up a lot of teams ended up teching against Burn for us, but Burn was probably only maybe a quarter of our decks generously. It's just the restrictions with Pyrodania made it pretty difficult to, I think, make a versatile deck out of it, where in this format, at least when people can prepare right for Targaryen, I think Burn is definitely much stronger in a standard format where you're in a tournament and people aren't, everyone isn't just playing Palace of Sorrows.
I don't think that can be underestimated too, how important that was for us. I ran Cohort twice and Valyrian Steel once, and I was just getting supporting all the hands judgment, all these Burn counters. The decks were suboptimal against me, and it just made life a lot easier when everyone teched for Burn. Definitely helped.
Yeah, and that's something we realized immediately going in against Martell, and Palpa had warned me against it. I didn't really believe it, but when we went against Martell, I think they ran plot lines what was it? They obviously had Sorrows. Just trying to think of the other plot lines, but Saros was something that popped up all the time. But they also ran 3x Scorpion, like War Scorpions in all their decks, right? So we realized that we couldn't throw Drogon at them, and we kind of adapted accordingly to not run Dragon decks, right, against Martell. But yeah, so I think it did end up working in our favor. I don't think we had a single dragon killed due to War Scorpion. I think they attempted it against Jeff, and he was running Conclave, but had healing expertise.
Yeah, that I think was my the highlight of that particular match. Was I think I used healing expertise out of my Conclave with Marwyn. Opted not to marshal anything because I wanted to wait till I could get my opponent to trigger the War Scorpion and save it.
Yeah, that was a fun play. Well, the second trade we ended up making was a mega deal, and Miha, you can actually speak to this. This was with Tyrell, and I was speaking to you and Kairong about it at length. This is one that the player in mind we had was Santi. I primarily wanted to trade for him because we had Kahan on our team, and I thought it would be good to have like two buddies, two metamates, our new players on the team, so they could kind of test against each other and kind of push each other to get a little bit better. And I think we, in our conversations with Johannes, he made it, kind of evident to us that Tyrell could be a natural trading partner for us because you all had a lot of needs from agendas that we didn't particularly care for, and vice versa.
Yeah, so the player trade there was a challenge because Santi, we didn't really mind losing that much because he didn't really get involved in the conversation, and but getting someone that we didn't really know. So I know Rupert's username on the Iron Throne, Power Mother. That's I played against that many times, and I know him from the Iron Throne, but not from tournaments, and it was his first real tournament entry. And we didn't know what to expect, but in the end that proved to be a fantastic trade for us, and he was really great in the team as well, contributing a lot to the discussions and to the positive atmosphere. And but we needed the agenda trades as well, so I don't think that was too difficult to arrange in the end. I think you and I even talked one night, well, nighttime for me anyway, at length about all the trades. And actually, when you mentioned that you were looking to trade for free companies and Conclave, I don't think you even had that in your initial offer. I had to remind you that you could take free companies instead of some of the other stuff that you were discussing at the time, if I remember correctly.
Or did I? Maybe.
Oh, was it a bluff?
Maybe. I don't know. I was delighting in playing a lot of trying to do a lot of deals in the silly season. So, because essentially Rupert had to be our trade piece, unfortunately. That was the only one I think that a lot of people were accepting as a trade, after we traded Todd. And I think that we were in talks with Greyjoy and Baratheon at the same time, potentially for Rupert. But Greyjoy kind of came close, but I think you all were the preferred trade partner the whole time. And, I didn't want to just ask for free companies and Conclave, because I think you would acknowledge that free companies is very good. And Cohort, I don't think I outright asked for Cohort. I just kind of added it in afterwards, because I didn't want to give Sticker Shock, because I think that that scared off some buyers in some of the other deals. So I eased it in, and I think we both came to a deal though that we were happy with at the end of it.
Yeah, honestly, Cohort was really crap for Tyrell, and I wish we could have got rid of both of them. I would have personally kept it as one of the agendas we didn't take an additional copy of, but we had to play one in the end. So that was not a big loss for us at all. But I did regret in the end giving you Conclave. That was before I had a chance to play with it, and yeah, that was a big regret I had, because I thought it was a strong deck in the end. But
well, don't worry, we went 0-for-4. It was sad.
Yeah, I won my game with Conclave. That's the only one we had, unfortunately. And we got 2 Banner Wolves from you back. We gave one to Nightwatch and we got 2 back. And unfortunately those did not prove to be that great. So yeah, in hindsight, of course, you could make different choices, but at the time it seemed like a really good deal. Like, we were getting a lot. The only thing was we were expecting to do another trade with Stark, so we kind of wanted to hang on to Knights of the Hollow Hill, and in the end, we didn't do that right, so we were kind of stuck with it. And then I think we ended up winning both games with that agenda. So just can never tell in this tournament.
Yeah, I was so surprised you didn't try to sell us the Knights of the Hollow Hill. I said to Peter all the time, like, they should at least give that to us, even though it's not the best agenda for us.
Johannes was like the devil on my shoulder. He was saying, "Oh, just offer them Banner Falcon. It's so much better." Which, in retrospect, was a lot better probably than Hollow Hill. That Banner Falcon deck, even though we won against it with Andy, that was a crazy hard match for us.
Yeah, we had some ideas for that agenda in the end. I think if the tournament was played again right now, we would value some of those agendas completely differently.
Yeah,
I think you had Francisco who had also the Banner Falcon deck. But I'm really surprised that you didn't think Cohort is good. I think Tyrell Cohort is good. It's like, just stand Randall Tarley all the time.
Well, we go. Oh.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a shame we didn't have you in the team then, because just had no ideas. I was going through the attachments, and there was some stuff like Knight that gives +1 strength, and some stuff that works with Knights, like Tourney Lance, and those Mirks and Seas like you have usually, but really not enough to justify it. And then if you're not playing a big attachments package, you are giving gold away if there's nothing in place. So the end, I just think it's a negative agenda. I think no agenda is better than playing Cohort in Tyrell, but not everyone in my team agrees with that. So
yeah, I have to disagree with that, but I think okay, we shouldn't make this as Tyrell discussion, even though I would love to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, it was I'll just say go on, yeah, sorry.
No, I was just going to say Andy was going to say something, so sorry for interrupting you earlier.
No, I was going to talk about Tard Cohort, not Tyrell Cohort. Sorry, I wasn't following properly. You're good.
Well, we can speak about. Well, we are in the agenda section, so. But I can at least say, and Andy, you can chime back in, that Targ Cohort did prove to be probably one of our best decks. It's just so versatile and it's uncancelable. And Targ has a lot of really good agendas, and we leaned into that pretty heavily in some of these matches until people wised up and started running Pointy End against us, which became annoying.
Yeah, I really learned to hate Pointy End this tournament. But the Cohort thing was interesting because it's obviously very strong for Targ based on our attachments. Even stronger when you realize that Dragon Skull is always going to be turned on. That was like the star of many of our decks. But it seemed like no one wanted to play it. I ended up playing it twice by default. Rain played it once, and we went 3-0 with it. But it seemed like no one really wanted it, despite how good it was. But yeah, whenever it was taken against Burn, Cohort sure looks a lot better.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It just came down. I think a lot of us were a little intimidated by Cohort. It's a difficult agenda. To me, when I play it casually in the Iron Throne just to test, I have like the list of attachments open next to me, right? Like, this is what I'm running, which obviously I can't do in a real tournament. So that's what kind of lessened the appeal for me, at least.
Exactly. I think it's a very, very strong agenda for Targ, but you really have to practice it. And we wanted to have value out of it, so we really had to send pilots who were used to it.
Yeah, I think like I said, like I can pilot it, but like surely there's Targ loyalists that can do a better job, because I can, of course, like I piloted quite a bit of Tyrell Cohort. I even took it to Starlek and Fracas one year because I got bored of the good stuff Tyrell, so I think I made the cut in Fracas with it, stuff like that. So it's still pretty good, even though the power level was also crazy at the time because there was not much restricted. So
yeah, I just think the milk and the seized by the guard, especially in this meta with all the really big strongholds, the seized by the guard was a huge deal for us. That we could just pull out and blank something on demand with Cohort, and that just struck us as very, very strong.
Yeah, I think it was a really good deck in this format because you could have all the good Targaryen attachments, and then you had the toolbox you could choose depending on the opponent. So it's like, and people didn't take against attachment until late. So I think like hardcore taking against Burn and then we bringing attachment decks was like really difficult for our opponents.
Yeah. Another agenda that we actually received from Tyrell, which really performed well from us, was Mummer's Farce, which actually surprised us because we also received that from Stark. Like everyone seemed to want to give away Mummers. Like, for me, that I just didn't understand that. Like, it's a draw, right? Automatic draw equals a good agenda to me. So I know, Miha, I think you were a little hesitant to even trade that, but you said the team didn't want it.
Yeah, we did a spreadsheet where everyone basically gave their opinions about the agendas, and Mummers was not very popular, and was always seemed like a possible trading piece because for some factions it's stronger than others, and Tyrell is a little bit generic. There's no obvious thing you can do, no sharing of gold around with Tyrell cards, and no characters with multiple keywords really, except for Renly. So it wasn't that highly valued, but it's a positive agenda for sure because basically you can do a minimum number of fools, and there is no downside. So we did win our game with it, if I remember correctly, and could have used more copies, but it was a good trading piece.
Yeah. There's a deck that there's the event Florian and Jonku that gives renown and nitrate, and Tyrell has quite a bit of night technology, so I think there's a good deck. And there's also these
the jousting pavilion. Like the knight was attacking alone, then maybe they could stand with the courtier and get the card, and yeah, you could do something.
Yeah, or it's even better with the knight's plot. Just put the renown plot, so everybody has renown anyway. And then you can have the spreads gold, the new Rainbow Guard character. So there's a lot of options for that.
Yeah, unfortunately for other decks, they don't have the benefit of easy to stand with Queen's Guard.
Yeah, that was a huge advantage to us. And we actually ran two versions. So Palpa ran the burn variant, and the star of that deck actually, in my opinion, you can correct me if I'm wrong there, Palpa, but was Sir Dantos, the Stark Fool, because he could continuously choose Dany for claim and then just stand Dantos, get more cards. I'll assume he agrees with me. The other deck we ran was Queen's Guard, and I believe Com ran that version, so I think we ran that version maybe once, and then I think Palpa ran Mummers maybe 3 times. So we ran the Burn, and then we ran the Queen's Guard version, and I think we only lost once with Mummers, so, or maybe it was 2 and 2. I don't know, I can't quite remember, but it was still a very good agenda for us.
It was 2 and 2, yes.
So
yes, 2 and 2.
Com played it against Tyrell, so you can see that on my channel if you like. You search for one of the games in round 5. It was against Eric, and seemed like it was going well until it wasn't. Suddenly Queensguard came in and just created a Voltron character with a bunch of strength, and yeah, just went completely downhill in the last, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, like that was a surprise to us. I think it was basically he started off behind, and then I think by the time that Eric flipped the night plot, he had critical mass of his tools, and he was able to block everything, and then just kind of sneak away with the win there.
Didn't Com flip Forgotten Plans to the night plot?
Oh, you're right, he did. Oh my goodness.
So there wasn't renown. And it was also like they were both playing quite slowly, and we were like, okay, we are not going to get another round, but it was like 13 seconds in. So when they started the plot phase, so it was like really like stressful match in many ways to watch.
Oh yeah, that was.
And I think the last turn was like half an hour or something like this.
You know, once you get to time, then the player said, okay, now we can take all the time we need. Right? It was. Yeah, it was stressful. But yeah, so other kind of key agendas that we got that we were strong. We also got Prince from Tyrell, and that was a very good deck for us, and we played that out of Dothraki. So Reinhardt and I played those, and we had two varieties, and one of which, you know, this led to kind of an ongoing kind of argument in our server between which Khal Drogo to play. Now, Andy and I are pretty partisan about this. We only believe in the core call, and we really don't like the Dragons of the East one. So we call core call the good call, and the dragon call the bad call. Reinhard, on the other hand, really liked the Dragon's call. So he played, I think, one match, and it was against Radek, and that was, I think, Radek was playing, and this was a Tyrell match again, and Radek was playing, I think, Banner Lion, which is, you know, the atrocious Shadows deck with Knights, which is really, really strong. And I think Reinhard was in the match, but Radek had a Varys with a dupe at one point, and it all went downhill from there, if I recall.
Yeah, that also is recorded, so if anyone wants to watch that, you can.
Yes. The other Prince decks I ran, and I think I got wins with both of those. So that's more of an aggro focused Prince deck, but it's one I definitely enjoy, and I played that. That was the deck I played during the World Cup, so I did have some experience there. Lastly, one other kind of really strong agenda I wanted to highlight that we received in trades was Kings of Summer. This wasn't something that, you know, I guess right off the bat, you know, appears to be an incredibly strong Targaryen deck, but it's a deck that Palpa had designed, and we had Kham run it and Kaham run it, and it's just, the economy for that is just bonkers. So Palpa, I don't know if you want to talk about it at all, but it was a very, very strong deck.
Well, I don't know what to say exactly. Of course, it's a burn deck because it's from me. And the surprising thing is that you play Targaryen, but you have gold and you have cards. So this is something that you normally don't have both. So you have gold and cards, and then you can burn. So I think that's enough said. And you can see that this is notable, strong, right?
Yes, it's notable because it's our only deck that runs Incinerate. Since we can't run 5-cost Dany, because in the summer deck we want to run Exchange for the cards. So we would run Core Dany and then run Incinerate, and when in that context is when you have the cards, you know, to draw to make up for what you're discarding with Incinerate, it's very good. So yeah, and Incinerate is not a banned card, you know, as some people have argued that it is. It's, you know, it has its place in the right context.
Yeah, I think I was one of the persons who said that no one will play Incinerate anymore, but I proved myself wrong, right?
That's right. You showed you, Palpa. But at this point, I think I'd like to get down to the agendas that really surprised us. So, Miha, this is the list that I sent you. And these are ones that we almost wish we had more of after we played them because we enjoyed them so much. So the first list that I want to highlight was our Banner Kraken list. This one we nicknamed the Iron Septa. It's based off of the Iron Maidens deck that was run at Stalek, I think, in 2018. It was a couple years ago. But essentially, it was a weenie Voltron deck. The whole concept of it comes down to taking one of the 2-cost, or Halden in this case, kind of small Targaryen characters, and then putting, you know, triple Tokar on them with Queensguard and Dragon Egg and everything to turn them into ideally a 35 strength Voltron that could not be defeated. And we ran that against Stark, and it worked to great effect. We took it later against Baratheon. It did not do as well there. They came with a pointy end, which made things very sad. And they had their own King Bob Voltron. But this is a deck that I played, and I very much enjoyed it. But it's one of the kind of neat new interactions that I'd never seen before, but we really enjoyed, was putting in the Reader Septon with Myrni's Market. So with Myrni's Market and Reader Septon, you could essentially draw anything from your discard pile, because you would put it under your deck with the Market, and then you would kneel the Reader Septon and place that card you just, you know, took out your discard pile on top of your deck. So that kind of enabled me to do things like play Gifts from the Widow every turn, which is pretty fun. The next deck that was, you know, kind of unexpected was the Banner Stag deck. I also ran that one early against Martell, and this was a little more straightforward. This was about this was a Renly deck, and it was running Warhammer. It was just a couple things that I thought were neat. Was essentially we could give Warhammer to Barcena Blackhair and put her up to 7 strength for only 3 gold, which seemed pretty fun. And if you put 2 Warhammers on Renly, you could pop out Daenerys, or Renly without Warhammers could pop out dragons by surprise and do surprise Dracarys. So that was also a really fun deck. The next deck, I'd also, let me know if I'm going too fast, Mihat, but the next deck I wanted to highlight was the Banner Watch deck that we nicknamed Super Smash Crows, and I would actually like to defer to Jim because this is his baby.
Sure, yeah. This was definitely a lot of fun to build. I think it was one of the last agendas that we hadn't really come up with a draft for, and I think initially it was on the short list of the 5 agendas that we didn't want an extra copy of. So I wanted to take a stab at it. I do actually play a decent amount of Night's Watch, but it's often the Steely recruiting build, which I often use Mag the Mighty. But those cards are loyal, so that wasn't an option. Playing an actual wall deck is something that you can do as a banner, but that's not really style, I guess. So I think if you're looking at banner cards from Watch, it really left Ranger cards as the best option. And I had played a Ranger crossing deck pretty heavily a few years ago. So I kind of started with that framework, where you need obviously a lot of Rangers to get the synergies with Jeremy Riker and Haunted Forest Scouts and stuff. So I knew it was going to be very heavy on the Rangers, and then I'm like, okay, well, what Targ cards work with that? And obviously, Drogo is the main one. A classic deck is the Super Smash Brothers with Drogo and Jaime. If you have non-kneeling military characters, then it's just a perfect synergy. It really became just a Night's Watch deck with Drogo. And then one of the things I love about this sort of event is it forces you to really go through every card in Thrones DB. And I came across the Pit Fighter's Blade, which is a card I had never used and probably only looked at twice in my life. But I was like, oh, that's a weapon that gives renown to military challenges, and that's the perfect card for Haunted Forest Scouts. One of the best cards in the Ranger deck is Longclaw. You can get multiple renown in the same turn. And so now this is a non-unique Longclaw for 1 cost. So that was just a perfect synergy. It just turned into a very heavy Ranger deck with Drogo, and then one of my favorite cards, Relentless Assault. You can often get 2, if not 3, military challenges. And then, if you have multiple non-kneelers that have renown, you can often be picking up 3, 5, 8 renown on military challenges in 1 turn, especially with Gren, who is thankfully non-loyal. So it applied a very heavy military pressure while also rushing very quickly. One of the other good target synergies was Plaza of Pride, which allows you to use Orin twice in 1 turn, which can be very strong. I got to give Peter, I believe it was Peter, credit for helping make this deck, because the initial builds I had were very fast cannon and didn't have the sustain. And there was not a lot of draw. The draw was clunky. But then we realized that the Watch Has Need is a non-loyal draw card. And then that allows you to search for multiple Rangers. And then in order to maximize the reserve, which allows you to search more, I decided to go with a double Maiden build. So that way you can get reserve of 8 for most plots, or 9 if you have Daiwin. And then that turns the Watch Has Need into one of the best cards in the deck. It would often get me 3, 4, 5 cards. So that really gave it the stability that it needed. So when the deck got humming, it was pretty ridiculous, because with Daiwin and the Haunted Forest Scouts, you can potentially have 3, 4, 5 characters that don't kneel, that are all making 2 or 3 military challenges with potentially multiple stealths, multiple renowns. You can get multiple ghost triggers so that they can't defend anything. Multiple stone snake triggers so he can load up on keywords. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. Definitely would not have thought of this deck if not for the format. It was really great in the Stark matchup because they teched heavily for anti-burn and for anti-jumpers with last breath scouts. So this deck had no burn and no jumpers, and it just kind of had its way. And then similarly in the Barra matchup, I was worried about black cells and other kneel stuff. So by having non-kneelers, Ryus brought the 7 gold Robert that prevents standing. So he was able to slow me down, but I was able to have enough guys that were able to make multiple challenges that kept the pressure on. And then we got some lucky top decks to end up winning that one. But that performed really well. It would have been great to have more copies of the agenda, but we didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, more examples of if we could have traded for undervalued banners, we would have. But no, we were very fortunate to have Jim. Kind of, it was almost like a bit of inspiration he had with the Rangers Rush, because we were toiling at suboptimal wall defense builds, and I think that's what a lot of people who are running Banner Watch were doing. It just didn't feel as good as running just straight watch wall defense. So, and it turned into probably, in my opinion, I think this is the most fun deck that we kind of built this tournament. I've run it in Champions of Westeros and just during casuals, and it's just so smooth and so fun to play. So kudos to Jim. It was a fantastic build. The next deck I actually want to highlight from this is another banner. Is Banner Rose, and of course we had Johannes take the lead on that because he is our friend in the Reach and knows everything Tyrell. So Johannes, I'll hand it over to you if you want to talk about the Banner Rose deck.
Yeah, I think we ended up running 3 different Banner Roses. Jim had one, and this was Knights deck. I kind of ran the similar Knights deck out of Tyrell and using the Knights of the Realm agenda. Just try to claim raise, do multiple challenges, and when the new Barristan Selmy came out, I tried to build this again and again and had little success, but I think going towards just multiple claim raise characters and the event with the spies, and then having Olena's informants and all the spies to do additional challenges, remove opponents' characters from the challenges and stuff like that, ended up working really well. Unfortunately, the game I played it, I didn't really find the uniques at all. I think I find them plot 5 or plot 6, so I didn't have renown, so it was kind of slow. And it was actually a Tyrell matchup. I was planning to play this first against Night's Watch, but then I would got paired with Nil. So it was kind of, I knew Nico is going to run some shadows or something like that, so the claim race isn't that good against that. So I changed my deck to the Knights of the Hollow Hill against him, which ran Dothraki jumpers. So his resets couldn't hit me all the time. Anyway, I just wanted to give this version out in the stream to see what you can do with Banner Rose. Because I think Jim's version was more big characters, stand stuff, good stuff. And then I think the last version, what we ran against Lannister, was kind of version of the Banner Watch deck that just used Green Apple Knights. But that list didn't get finalized. I only played like 1 test game with it. So it kind of backfired.
Yeah, and something that was very traditional out of Banner Rose is the there's a burn deck, and I believe Storm Humbert has a lot of credit to developing it, where it uses Golden Grove and Ostapor, and we had that in mind when we were trading for Banner Rose, when you were giving it to us, and we had no objections to receiving having 3 of them. But then we realized that we couldn't actually replicate that deck because now Golden Grove is restricted, and we couldn't run that and cost 80. So we had to go in creative directions, and overall we were 2 for 3 with Rose, and I think that's a strength for it because Tyrell just has so many good stuff cards you can put in any deck that we could tech it based on any matchup. So yeah, we were very pleased with that agenda.
Yeah, I think we could have won the last one even there if I just made a bad decision maybe, but also like the deck wasn't finalized and I didn't want to run the one with the heavy discard stuff against Lannister, because if they bring Cersei and I don't find tools for her, I can't use the discard tech or I lose in 2 turns.
Yeah, so our next deck, actually, I think Jeff and Johannes can speak to, was Targaryen Greensight, which at its first glance you don't think, oh, this is a Targ deck, but it turned out to be a very interesting, very mean deck. We actually ended up calling it Mean Sight. So, Johannes, did you want to start with that?
I can start, but like I don't really know the history and the basis of the deck. It's just something
Okay,
like.
sure. Well, then I suppose then I can start. This came down the last year. Palpa had told me that Reinhard ran a version of this. Basically, he ran Greensight with Crones of Vaesdothrak, which initially struck me as like, oh, that's very evil. I would like to have a deck that does that. So we started there, and we just plugged in the mercenary tech because for us, I think one of my main takeaways from this tournament is that this Targ mercenary tech is very strong. And if we have a generic Targ deck, it's never a bad idea if we don't know what direction to go in just to run the mercenary tech. So we plugged that in, and we were kicking this around, and Jeff was helping me look at this because he likes decks that do these kind of mean things. And this is one of the inspired suggestions our teammate Com had. He suggested that we add the Seed of Strong to the deck as well, because we were going up against Greyjoy and then Stark. And, the idea is that we could discard a lot of their, either lords or ladies from hand and then use the crone and kill them. So we plugged that in, and we played around with it, and it kind of worked. Sometimes it didn't, but when it did work, it was really, really funny. So, Jeff, do you want to talk about your first match against Greyjoy? This is one where he ran into a lot of counter tech, unfortunately, but I think Jeff had a lot of reps with the deck.
Yeah, actually, I think, was this against Greyjoy or was this against... oh, no, you're right. It was Greyjoy because I played Leo. Yeah, and so the deck itself, I'm a real huge fan of because of my degenerate playstyle. But I think the issue I had is that I don't think I ran into any of my crones during that game. But the concept of the deck was really interesting because obviously with character recursion from the discard, like even you discarding your characters from Greensight was not as much of an impact against you. The downside is I think it was the only time we saw bribery being played against us, and so most my poor Tyrion, I think, got taken away from me. I guess the Greyjoys decided to pay the gold price this time. But aside from that, the deck itself is really, really fun and creative, and it's one I like to just kind of launch up on a rando game that I'm playing on the Iron Throne and just have some fun with it.
By having fun, Jeff means tilting people into the sun.
I did say I was a degenerate.
Johannes, did you want to speak to the Stark matchup? Because I know that game was really back and forth, and the deck did very
it was
well.
a really tight game, and this kind of like just happened. I asked to pilot this deck because I kind of thought I had like 2 of the Knights of the Realm and 2 Banner Wolves and 2 Knights of the Hollow Hill, and then realizing we only have 1 copy of each, and then I had like, okay, I have decks for 3 games of matchups, and then I just asked, can I play the Greensight against Stark because they have the lords and ladies, and Sarah was running this passive power deck with Fat Cat, Chamber of like Iron Throne, Chamber of the Painted Table, stuff like that, and that could really fast, and also Corset Sansa that can like win really fast without doing challenges. And I think they had like a Fat Cat from start, and I had 2 Seeded Strongs on my like first hand or after setup at least. I think I had one in like starting hand, and then after refilling my hand I had two, and started with at the gates and played two of those. Unfortunately, I only hit something like Bran or Recon and then Arya, but I think Arya was a good hit since I applied quite a bit of military pressure later, and I think Arya would have been good in that situation. I think I only hit like one card with the Crone, I think, and I ended up choosing, I think it was already second round, I played what's the winter plot that you have to reveal 3 cards?
Fall Spring.
Oh, that's Fall Spring.
Fall Spring, yeah. And I think that I had like only 3 cards in hand, and that was Wyman, Chamber of the Painted Table, and Meister Crescent. And I had to think about this quite a bit. I think I already milked the Fat Cat, so that was one part like I don't have to worry about. But then if I kill Wyman, then they have the Crescent and Fat Cat is back, and then of course it's risk to give. Well, Miha knows it's risk to give Chamber of the Painted Table, because I might end up not being able to win the game, because not winning power challenges kind of kills your game. But I did the brave choice to actually kill Master Crescent, because I had another milk in hand, and then I thought I might, because they didn't have the Iron Throne yet, so I thought I might win dominance by having more characters. And it was it went really close. I think Sarah was at 11-12 power, and you can't like give much more to that deck because it just wins, even though you have control of the board. But I could apply enough military pressure, use the father to bounce it, maybe it was Sansa, and leave Wyman and Fat Cat there and play Valado Haris, and then just apply military pressure. So, but it was a really fun deck to play. The matchup was super hard in my opinion, but it was. And also, like I have to say, like green side is usually thought as a bad agenda, but I used the green side. I saw their Iron Throne and was able to green side it, because if I think if the Sarah would have drawn that, I would have just lost like in 2 rounds after that, just not being able to win dominance after that. So
I think it's an underrated agenda for sure.
Yeah, and especially in Targaryen, when you can put mercenaries into your discard and just bring them back.
Yeah, that was the whole idea, that it synergized well with the mercenaries, like just because we can recur them for the discard. Like them and like the Freedmen, Mother's Men, you could put a lot of things into discard that can just pop back out with Targaryen. And if you're worried about losing the card, we always run Myrni's Markets, so we could just put that card on the bottom and, draw it again later potentially. So,
And the deck had like Icon Targaryen as a restricted, so we can shuffle our deck as well, so we can just fetch them.
Yeah.
But I think I ended up winning the game actually with the Dario and Mercenary Contract, which is something, well, what Jeff said, that can tilt people. That's
right, it's degenerate. And like the Mercenary Contract Dario is something that has always been, that was also a winning combination cohort for us, so putting those together is never a bad call. At the very least, Mercenary Contract is a stand, which we're not going to say no to. So, yeah, it was very good. Well, the last agenda that I think I handed you, the last deck that I want to highlight was Targ Brotherhood, and this is a deck actually Reinhard had piloted. I didn't see his matches with this. Maybe Palpa. I don't know, Palpa, if you saw them, but I can comment on the general direction of this deck. This is an agenda that we were initially trying to trade away because we really didn't know what to do with, but Reinhard, already had one built and came in and just made the good point of saying, well, we have a lot of decks, we have to search for the Dragon Egg to give a character insight. In this deck, we can just give Queensguard to someone and then just give them the insight keyword, and we're fine. So, obviously in this deck, you can see things like Lady Stoneheart, like Jaqen H'ghar, Tormund, a lot of really good neutral characters with Queensguard, and it was surprising. Well, maybe it shouldn't be surprisingly deadly, but it was. I didn't expect, to do such great things, but, in retrospect, it seemed pretty obvious.
Yeah, so let me just say, I just quickly checked. There is actually a recording of the decisive game between Reinhardt and whoever was playing for Greyjoy. They were both playing Brotherhood, and you can find that on my channel. So we do have footage of this deck in action as well.
Yeah, and I think Reinhardt said in the chat, like, it's actually, he thinks it's his best deck at the moment. So he was really, we were unfortunate, like early when we were doing the trades, I think we were discussing we don't have any, that it's gonna be okay, but not great. And then I think Reinhardt was on holiday, and when luckily we didn't trade those away, because when Reinhardt was able to check the chat, he said like this is probably his best deck at the moment.
Yeah, very fortunate.
I voted for it. I'm sorry.
No, go on.
I think I voted for it. I think there was a discussion to give it away, and I think I said, I think Reinhardt wants to play it, because I remember that he liked it in the previous season as well. So maybe this saved it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a good agenda. Like, I think it's just versatile, and a lot of different factions can do things with it, you know, because obviously you have the keyword granting for a lot of, at this point, really good neutral characters like Lady Stoneheart, Tormund, Jaqen, etc., Angui, and, you know, all other factions have different flavors they can put on it. So I think it's a plus agenda in almost any faction. All right, well, at this point, if no one else has anything else to say about those Brotherhood, we can move on to kind of our next topic, which is, I just want to have like a brief discussion over what, you know, the tournament highlights were. I won't go in depth into every single matchup because, you know, I don't think people watching the stream want to relive that. But I do want to talk about, you know, which matches we thought were the toughest and kept us on the edge of our seats.
Can I, Peter, say one more thing about that agendas?
Sure, go for it. Sorry.
I think one of the sleeper agendas in this tournament was the Long Voyage. I think we had a great build by Axo that I enjoyed playing, and I actually burned some characters with the deck. So it's like, and also like Super Duck winning a tournament with the Greyjoy Long Voyage. So I think it's underrated agenda at the moment, because nowadays you have enough cards to build a 100-card deck that you don't have to have any bad cards in it. So it's only like you draw one extra card, hope for a good setup, or build your deck, it gets good setups. Have some tutor, you have like Brand the Builder. We had Aegon, of course, stuff like that. So I think it's a good deck.
I agree. It's just the whole idea that you can draw 3 every round. You know, it's a draw engine that's already built into the agenda, and it makes the deck so resilient. So whenever someone would hit us with a reset, it just didn't affect, you know, we didn't feel starved for cards at all, and it worked out very well. All right, well, moving on to the tournament highlights, I think I was speaking. I just wanted to highlight, at least we can talk about, we can go around the room, which matches we thought were the toughest. You know, for me, I can start. I know that the toughest match in my mind, and this stuck out in my mind, was the Tyrell match. At that point, we were, I think, you know, people had started to view us as clear favorites. We were pulling ahead of the pack, and it was just very scary to me to go and see Tyrell with, I think they had 4 white books remaining and 2 Banner Lions, and that was a very scary proposition to me. And, you know, I think Tyrell's naturally pretty good in the Targ just because of all the strength pumps, right? And they're not as susceptible to aggro. So, you know, in that match, it was a tie. It was 5-5, and it went down to the wire. But I still kicked myself because I had a match with the infamous Conclave deck that we couldn't get a win with. And at the very last turn, I shouldn't have blocked with Maester Aemon because, you know, Maester Aemon, you never block with him, but I did anyway, and that lost me the game. So that still haunts me to this day. But yeah, that was a very, very tough match, and, you know, we were very, very lucky to win that. We had a lot of tight matches in between.
Yeah, well, it was 5-3 in our favor, so I think 5-5 is fair enough for you.
Oh yeah, it was tough. And something else, you know, like, even though it looks like that we won very decisively over the whole tournament, I think we still had so it was 5-5 with the Tyrell match, but I think the other two matches we went to 6-4 with. We didn't actually romp over anyone. We had, I think, the biggest margin was 7-3, and Greyjoy and Stark were both 6-4. And I know, I think Stark was another comeback. I think we were down 4-3 against Stark. Jim, I don't know if you could speak to that. I think you were part of that comeback there.
Yeah, we were down 4-3. Remember, that was a very tight matchup. Stark I thought they had one of the best teams, and I think Stark's pretty strong right now. But yeah, it was pretty even, and then we were down 4-3, and we had Reinhard, myself, and Andy going into the weekend, and I think we felt pretty good, even though we were down. That was when I recorded a song that was posted after Miha inspired me, but yeah, I think we were all really fired up and cheering each other on, and we were able to come back and get the last 3 wins of that matchup. But I thought Stark was a very tough matchup.
Yeah, I was overjoyed that we won that one, because a lot of it came down to Stark had a lot of tech that naturally made life difficult for us. Just the fact that Winterfell was out there and made everything, we couldn't burn people easily. We couldn't trigger cohort on challenges. We couldn't trigger things like Prince. They would run barring. It was very, very difficult. And on top of that, one card that I've really come to hate this whole tournament was the new Grey Wind attachment, because I felt like it was ever present, it was omnipresent, and it just messed up a lot of our big triggers, and it was very annoying.
Yeah, no surprises. Last Hearth Scouts, I felt like Stark had a lot of tools to counter us. Lannister, I think I'd put in the other one with all their cancels. Just think from a pure matchup perspective, that was probably their toughest.
Agreed. The other matchup that definitely was tough was Greyjoy. So that was one that went down to the wire. And Miha, as you noted earlier, it was Reinhard who clinched that match with the Brotherhood mirror matchup. It was 5-4 at that point. But yeah, like Greyjoy just has a lot of efficiency, and they came in second in the tournament for a reason. I think they were playing from behind after they lost to us, but they are still very, very strong. I know that I lost my match during that one too, and that was to Magnus actually, and he was running green sight and double barring. And I think he realized that when I play Targ, I usually play jumpers. So when I would run a double barring, it was very, very frustrating, to say the least. But yeah, Johannes, I don't know if you had any other.
I was just about to comment. Reinhardt's final game, I actually only watched the text. I was on a train at the moment, coming back from the Estonian Nationals, I think. But it was also like when we talked about the one game comms game against Tyrell, like we have to worry about the clock. I think with Reinhardt in that match, we have to worry about his connection, because things were going really well for us, but like Reinhardt had a lot of connection issues, so that was the very, very, very the one thing that made me very nervous. And actually Reinhardt had the Iron Throne crash in the last game against Lannister as well. So, and I think this time it wasn't about Reinhardt's internet, even though we all try to say we chip in and buy you a new, better internet connection. But
I know, it was Reinhardt. I feel like Reinhardt was heroic with what he did. I think he was on holiday twice, and he still managed to play during those weeks. I think, well, the first week was when we were doing the silly season, and the second one was the final week, and he managed to find a spot to play. So, I'm very happy that he was able to get his step up and get games in, because it was a challenge sometimes to form a lineup.
Speaking of the Greyjoy matchup, I mean, I think they had a phenomenal tournament, and I know it looked like we ran away with it, and that's what the scoreboard shows. But if 2 games had flipped in that matchup, then they would have won. Like, they were very close to winning, and they had a very different draft strategy. I think that like they didn't, Peter really drafted high value, high win players, and Greyjoy had a more different strategy. They didn't have quite the caliber, in terms of win percentage. But I think if you took faction strength out of it, I would have expected Greyjoy to perform in the bottom half. But I think they did a good job leveraging their cards, and I think Greyjoy is very strong right now, especially Greyjoy Fealty. So yeah, I just want to give them a little bit of a shout out for a very strong performance as well. Very close second place.
Agreed. Yeah. I think that, there's a lot of talk about the trade season. I think, obviously what Greyjoy did during the trade season, like, helped them out phenomenally. I think Paul did a great job of finding, the strong agendas for that faction, and they used them all to great effect. And the players that they got and they traded for, as you said, may not have had a high win rate, but I would say that the players they had, like, Magnus and Nevia, they may not have the highest win rate, but they have a lot of Greyjoy experience, and they both love playing Greyjoy, and that goes a really long way, kind of, in these tournaments. That people know a faction in and out. They really play above, I would say, the win rate that's advertised, and because they can do weird things with the factions, they know the weird cards that they can build with, and that just adds kind of an intangible effect there. Yeah, and this kind of segues well into kind of, one of my last questions I want to start asking people here, favorite moments of the tournament. Mine is one of those very close Greyjoy games. It was Alex Serban on our team. He was playing Free Companies, and he was against Eusebio, who was playing the Alliance Free Companies, I think it was Targ deck, that he basically was the Valyrian Steel Big Vic deck, that he would make invincible Big Vic. Yeah, oops. Yeah. There's some editing for you, Miha.
No, that's staying in.
That's
Just
all right.
have to
Okay.
live with it.
I will. Well, it's what I meant to say, I guess. Well, the invincible Big Vic deck, and it came down to the very last moment where essentially Alex had, Tyrion out. I think he had Egan and Shadows, but Eusebio had Begging Brother with gold bestowed on it. And Eusebio swung Intrigue, and we had completely forgotten about this, but Alex had made a last-minute change to his Free Companies deck that he added Consuming Flames. And he had it. And he got rid of the Begging Brother and was able to, trigger Tyrion to bring in, like Vargo, and trigger Aegon to bring in Golden Company, and just basically stop the challenges and then win the game. And I don't know. I was losing it after that happened. I just couldn't believe what happened. And it was such a great game. And it came down, the Greyjoy game hinged on that. And you look back, it could have been potentially the whole tournament hinged on that Consuming Flames. It was crazy. So that was really wild to me.
Yeah, Burn can win games. People forget that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we made quite a few last-minute changes to decks, and most of them were golden. Couple misses, but most of them were really good.
Yeah, everyone here was very kind of very open to feedback and criticism when it came to deck lists. So we'd put stuff up, and everyone here had good ideas, and there's a lot of good back and forth, and that was something that was really good about our team. That everyone was really open to say, how can you make this deck better? And people would chime in and basically kind of help bring something, make something even better out of what was. But
yeah, I think there was this remind me of one of the comms game, it was against White Book. We kind of thought it was gonna be White Book, and Palpa said let's put in Hired Assassin, and then I said it's a faction nil thing, put in Old Bill Bone, and I think Com had both of those cards in starting hand, and Hired Assassin killed Knight of Flowers, and then Old Bill Bone was in and out in that game and kneeled the faction card 3 or 4 times. So I think they were really clutch.
Oh yeah, that was the Baratheon matchup. That was a huge win for Com. Yeah, it came down that people had really good insights. Even things like Com had another insight for Palpa's first match, where he suggested adding Benjicott to Mummers, and Palpa, I think you could speak to that.
Yeah, right. It's Benjicott isn't a card that I really liked because it only has 1 strength, and if you have characters with 1 strength, you burn them on the blood of the dragon turn. So I try to avoid them. Of course, I have Mother's Men in there because they have high value with burn. So he said like it's a natural fit, and just tried it, and I had it in the starting hand, and I think I drew 4 cards with it. So it had a very high value, and now it's permanently in, right?
Yeah, the wild play I saw was you were able to recur Hired Assassin out of discard because he shared ally trait with Benjamin. Not Hired Assassin, Shadow Black Assassin.
So the markets helped there too, and that's a very nice synergy that I wasn't aware of before the match.
Yeah. So I'd like to
maybe another favorite moment or favorite
yes.
thing was that the people were obviously throwing Palace of Storos against us, and at least in 2 games, I think it was one by Andy and one of my games, it really helped us because the boards were not that big, and in the end the Palace of Storos evened the boards, so it really helped us. So this was for me a fun thing about the whole tournament, that people tagged against us and then it backfired. This was fun for me.
Yeah, I think this that made me realize well, that and many things, but everything during this tournament, that corset call that some people say it's the good call is a really strong card.
Everyone says it's the good call, Johannes. Everybody.
Yeah, because if you have that on the Palace of Sorrows turn, they always need 2 characters to block just shot challenge on military, and that's quite brutal.
Jeff, did you have a favorite moment?
I wouldn't say it was my favorite moment, but it is the one that stands out to me the most. Was definitely my matchup against Baratheon, because that was, I think, there wasn't a lot to talk about considering it only lasted about 15 minutes, but they ran double supporting the faith, which I just happened to be running my Assault from the Shadows deck. So like there was just like absolutely nothing I could do for at least like 2 rounds against them. But I would say I think the best part of that was that like at least it was early in the week, and so we at least had it in our minds that they're definitely prepping hard for counter burn, wanting us not to be able to use our events and everything like that. So like I don't know if that helped out in any of the other matches up against Baratheon that particular week, but it definitely is like stands out to me of like, well, never forget,
Jeff, you just had a knack for running into the hardest counterattack for some reason, because the funny thing is Jeff didn't play burn the whole tournament until that point. He played, like Conclave, which is
that was one opportunity to burn things.
And then he runs into just hardcore anti-burn, and he ran into bribery the one time he played Mercenaries. I don't know, Jeff. You just took.
I was the team lightning rod.
you ran into White Book. Yeah, that's a good deck. I don't know what to do against Tyrell White Book.
I think
throw dark wings and dark words at it.
That's what you do, exactly.
After Jeff's game against Baratheon, I think we put more copies of High Road into all of our decks that ran events or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest lesson learned. Targ loves High Roads.
High Road's a great card. Jim, how about you? Did you have a favorite moment?
I mean, I really enjoyed watching other people play. Unfortunately, Iron Throne is blocked at my work, and I had limited time to watch. I really enjoyed my opportunities. I think from my games, my closest one was probably against Night's Watch with Templar. I think I was preparing for all sorts of attachments and stuff, but he showed up with Banner Lion in a kind of jumpers kill deck, and he had set up Mountains of the Moon. It didn't actually have that many clansmen in it, but it had some clansmen, which I appreciated, since my world deck had clansmen. It felt like he was, I don't know, tipping the cap or something. But it turned into a very, very close game. I believe he got to 13 or 14 power before I ultimately pulled it out. But so yeah, gotta credit Templar for making a fun deck.
Final play of that match. I think there was I think you his hand's judgment of your was it Our Word as Good as Gold? It was something crazy. I just remember it was
that sounds right.
Yeah.
That was the last round or round before, but yeah. But I said to him like Templar is like 90% is gonna run wall defense, and this was wall defense, but it was very, or at least it had a corset wall in it. But
it was wall defense with recurring Robert Strong, right? What's not to like?
Yeah.
Oh man,
that was Robert Strong, and I remember the Hound was giving me all sorts of fits. So much strength in all the jumpers, but I remember there was a clutch intrigue hit where I think he had 2 or 3 cards, and I finally got the Hound out of his hand. I think if I had missed that one, he definitely would have won the game.
Yeah, and Hound is really good in wall defense as well because he can defend multiple challenges. But I think he found his wall very late in the game, I think.
Yeah.
Super. Did anyone else have any favorite moments?
Well, I can say I said like my favorite moment was Reinhardt's game with Targaryen Fealty against Lucas, and Lucas was running Night's Watch Bigs, and I don't remember was it Reigns or was it Aloof or whatever it was, but I kind of have started to hate Night's Watch Bigs because the great ranging is so strong card, and they have good bigs, and they have saves, they have good meisters to play out with. But Reinhardt had something like 20 to 30 cards under the pyramid. He had pyramid and Meren first round, and it was not looking great because of course Reinhardt had a slow start of marshalling all these locations, but in the end he had all the burn events and had something like 5 cards left in the deck, and then just Lucas couldn't anymore do anything.
That's just too funny. It's like, Great Pyramid's a card you never see played, but then, it's always great to see someone like Reinhardt bring it out and use it to good effect.
When it clicks, it's really strong, but like it takes time to set up, of course.
Agreed. Yeah, there's one other thing just on that comment about the Night's Watch match that I do want to highlight is one of my favorite moments was when Kahan, who was kind of our junior most member on the team, he was playing Zelkor, and Zelkor was playing Banner Falcon, and Kahan was playing MFG Burn. And Zelkor sends a great ranging at him, which had, I think it was 14 or 15 strength. And Kahan at that point was going to lose the game, but he had all of his burn in hand. And I pasted the chat into Trash Talk, and I have it on our channel to see like kind of the whole process of it, where it's just Kahan playing different burn events and Zelkor using Halder multiple times, and then finally, Kahan kills the great ranging, and Zelkor won, but I say it was a Pyrrhic victory. The great ranging was defeated, which felt pretty good.
Yeah, and it was nice because I think they could have saved great ranging if they knelt the wall for Halder as well.
I was gonna say, Zelkor's a man of principle. He wouldn't kneel the wall for anything. But yeah, that was too funny. Yeah, go on, Johannes.
Remembered like one of the, because people played a lot of counter plots against us, but I think Andy used the Wardens of the East himself in the Cohort deck. And I think that was also the Tyrant matchup, so there's probably footage of it, because it was Francisco playing the Banner Falcon. And we kind of guessed he would play that, because he played it before. And it had all the remove from the challenge events, like the Wall of Roses and the Offer of the Beach. And then we were playing Cohort. So Andy just decided to run that, and that was clutch in that game, I think.
Very much so. Yeah, I think Wardens was used against us quite a bit too. Andy used Wardens in the Greyjoy matchup to prevent Rizzens, and he was against a Drown God deck. so that worked out really well. But Wardens was a very good call against most of our decks that weren't attachment based, because Targaryen just has really strong events in general, and we have Aegon, who's in shadows, and Wardens at least reveals that to people and takes out some of the surprise. So yeah, I think it's been cool to see some of the Aaron cards that were originally a bit, kind of scoffed at by the community are now seeing more play, as people realizing that they're pretty good. There's a lot of, a lot of good stuff there. Well, I don't want to keep Miha too much longer. It is getting late, so I want to kind of wrap it up here. I just want to kind of, give my kind of, takeaways and reactions overall. I just want to say that, this was a fantastic time. I really loved, kind of being regent for this team, and everyone on the team was great and supportive, and, all kind of chimed in, helped, everybody with, their play or just being there for people, even if they lost. And I really feel like I made a bunch of new friends. So like that's always a good thing to get out of these tournaments. And a cool thing that I think I alluded to in the admin chat is we actually have team uniforms, so we all have team T-shirts, and you'll see a bunch of people wearing Team Targaryen T-shirts, I imagine, around Stalek, which will be kind of neat. We'll have to get a photo when it comes to it. But yeah, so I just want to thank everyone here, for taking the time to commit to this very long tournament, and to basically put in all the time to build and practice and play and help make each other better. But yeah, overall I had a great time, so thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Peter,
to
for being
part
an
of the
awesome
team.
regent.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it, and thank you, Miha, for giving us the time to record this video. I know it's very late over where you're at, and I know you were on Team Tyrell, so there's a little bit of conflict of interest, but I do appreciate it.
Yeah, almost midnight, but no worries. It was a privilege to do this with you guys, and thank you for showing up. And congratulations once again for a great performance in the tournament. I think, of course, everyone wants to win, so most people are disappointed at the end by how the tournament went, but I think I saw you as one of the favorites, maybe top 3 in terms of team strength before the tournament, and the faction with its versatility not too badly placed either. So I'm not surprised, and I definitely do not begrudge you this win, because I think you were a great team throughout, never really had any drama or anything like that, and played interesting decks, and yeah, well done, guys. And I can only be happy for you. I know it's a good feeling to win this, and enjoy it.
Yes, now we can't wait till next year. Whatever teams we may be on, but we will still always be Team Targ 2023.
I just want to give a shout out to all the organizers and the format for the tournament. I mean, this was a very unique tournament. I've played in Thrones Wars a few times, and I've always loved that format. But the fact that you basically had to use all agendas, I think really inspires some interesting deck building in a way that no other tournament does. And I think this is the only one I've played where you know which faction you're playing against each week while you're still choosing your deck. And that adds a whole different wrinkle to the deck building and the strategy. I think it maybe favors some factions, like Targaryen's pretty flexible, and maybe it hurts other factions, like Night's Watch comes to mind. People can just really tech against that stuff, but it's just very unique, and I really enjoyed the opportunity, and definitely look forward to doing it again next year.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Oh no, I was just going to kind of piggyback off of what was just said. Is like one of the things that I love about team tournaments like this is like I myself am not a Targaryen loyalist by any stretch of the imagination, but now leaving this, I've gotten like so many deck ideas that I want to play around with now, just because from like talking with the teammates and seeing kind of like their strategy with how they're making certain cards work together with like the faction, and like maybe taking what they're working with and maybe applying something else to it that I've seen and such.
Yeah, totally. And the thing I love about these team tournaments is for me it really kind of reinvigorates my love of the game. And it just makes me want to, it makes me want to build more decks and play more weird cards that I haven't, thought of before. And it does in my mind, it does a good job of trying to kind of shake up the meta a bit, because people get to play things that haven't seen the light of day in the longest time.
To that, I have to add something we forgot to mention. We almost actually seriously played Hot Pie.
I can't believe it. Yeah, you're right.
And we played I don't know how to pronounce that, Tithe or whatever, Tithe, the neutral event. That
Tithe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
Tithe.
It's like the same deck. I think it was something like 63rd card would have been a Hot Pie.
It was against
Alusane.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was against
Not Alusane.
It was against
Alia.
We were at our wits' end with their Lords and Lady triggers, and we said we should run Alusane, and we need to find ways to trigger her before challenges, right? To kneel her, and Hot Pie. That's what came to mind, and it was serious. Almost happened.
Hot pie that was promised.
Hot Pie that came too late. Well, that seems like a good one to end on. So, once again, I'd like to thank everyone here for showing up. I'd like to thank the organizers. I'd like to thank Miha for hosting the stream, and of course to all my teammates for putting together a great season for Team Targaryen. So, if there's nothing else, Miha, you can sign us out if you want.
Alright, so let that be the final video from the 8 regions. There might be some more on my channel throughout the year if I dig through the archives and see something interesting, but this is a good one to conclude with. And we can also end with an invitation to the upcoming tournaments. Of course, there's nationals coming up in a few different countries. There is Friendly Open about to restart before Starlek, probably with a few events for people who want to practice there or try something new. And of course Starlek coming up in November. And then for those that like the team format, there is of course the upcoming team regionals as well in a few months. That is not too different to the 8 regions, so I guess we can have something similar in that one, and hopefully we'll see everyone there. So thank you all for listening, and thanks guys for doing this with me. And we'll see you all next year again, hopefully in the 8 Regents of Westeros tournament. Have a good night.